Well, hello, everybody. I'm Yoon Cannon, and today I am back with Amber Saunders. I'm excited to dive into a conversation to get to know Amber better and her firm. So, welcome, Amber. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Again, my name's Amber Saunders, helping them grow their businesses through business protections, contracts, et cetera, and then helping them transition and ensure that their family stays out of court and conflict if something happens to them through estate planning.
Nice.
Nice.
Now, you have a really interesting background. I mean, you've got a lot of diversified experience. Tell us a little bit more about your other projects. I mean, you've gotten like 100 urban entrepreneurs together. Tell us a little bit more about that part of your
Yes.
background.
So when I finished law school, I was tired and I did not
Mhm.
go straight into practice. So I started a test prep company. My homeroom teacher, I live in Atlanta. My homeroom teacher from high school remembers when I took the ACT that hadn't done well the first time. Went back and studied and took the tests and did all those things and increased my score and ended up getting some money for school. And so she wanted me to do that, help her son. And so then I helped her son and ended up getting the whole class and then ended up getting a few others. So it turned into a business for a couple years. And so when I first started that business, I'd done a pitch competition, and so I won the pitch competition through 100 Urban Entrepreneurs, and they
Mhm.
gave me some seed funding for the business, and then I ended up working with them and helping other entrepreneurs with doing their pitch. So it turned into a whole thing and distracted me for a few years, and then I decided to go back and practice law after after doing that for about 3 or 4 years.
But that I would imagine is also really great experience from to give you that perspective when you work with other entrepreneurs who might be needing seed funding and just different ways they can go about that. Just that experience of you getting in the trenches and starting something from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it helps us to, or at least me, to better understand what they're going through. Often people will go to a business lawyer or a lawyer, period, who hasn't been in their shoes. So they can give them advice from their experience from other things, but not necessarily knowing what the person is going through. So I think that that helps set us apart and makes people comfortable with bringing their issues to us.
And then you also authored a book.
Yes. So during that time, it was
Yeah.
ahead of the curve how how parents can get their children into college. And so during that time that I had the test prep company,
Mhm.
I ended up publishing a book about some of the things that I saw that students could do to ensure that they got some money for college, that they knew what the process was, that they were doing it themselves. My mother, while she helped me, she let me do a lot of it myself. So I had to figure out writing the essays, doing all those things. So it kind of was a step by step of what that process was, so that when people are trying to figure that out for their students or their children, that their children have a guide to go to.
Mm. So you went from prepping from that season of life of getting into college to now the next season with estate planning. I'm just curious, what was it that drew you to pursue your calling to start your own law firm and specialize in estate and business law? Tell me about your origination story.
Well, my mother says that I told her I was going to be a lawyer when I was in kindergarten. And so I've always wanted to do it. I had tunnel vision. There was nothing else I was going to do. Even though I got distracted with the other business, I always knew I was going to go back and practice law. But I didn't know what kind of law. I thought that I was going to be Johnny Cochran or something and do criminal defense. And then I got to court and started crying when someone went to jail. So that wasn't going to work. And I was like, so what am I going to do? And so I started taking different things, but business always ended up sticking. And then estate planning was just through sheer luck, almost the same way the test prep business. Um, or, you know, my grandmother was the only person in my family who had a will or anything like that. She had a will, healthcare directive, power of attorney, long-term care insurance, all those things. Um, and so when she got sick, she had Alzheimer's, and my uncle and my mother had to take care of her, and it was just really easy. because she did everything up front. They didn't have to worry. They didn't
Right.
have a big headache in probate court. But then my grandfather and my uncle and all these other people passed. And I was like, well, why didn't you listen to grandma? You saw hers was easy. Like, you didn't do it. And they didn't.
Right.
My mother was in court for 4 years almost, fighting with
No
creditors and different
kidding.
people for my uncle's estate. And so when I saw that, and I was like, it could be so simple, it made me want to do that, to try and have people go through the positive part of the estate planning as opposed
Right.
to the probate part that my mother went through with my uncle's estate.
Right. So for our listeners, I know a lot of our audience, you know, they are taking care of their parents who are aging. And um, surprisingly, a lot of those folks who are in their 80s, 70s, and plus, they don't even have their will done yet, or they have kind of like a, you know, just a really basic sort of a will. Um, so to educate entrepreneurs who might not know this, what if they have, let's say some people have their will, but it hasn't been notarized or it hasn't made it back to the law firm.
Mm-hmm.
So is it legit?
No, probably not. So it depends on the state. I think, where did I saw something in the news? It's taken years, but there was a directive or something that Aretha Franklin wrote down, and it was in
Hmm.
her couch. And
Oh,
they have, after years, they have approved that as being the will, but it was saying what she wanted to happen. So in most circumstances, that's not going to happen. In Georgia, you have to have and two witnesses and a notary. Neither one of the witnesses can be anyone who's mentioned in the will, things like that. So they have all of these requirements before they will deem a will valid. So it will vary from state to state. Now you can argue, they probably did a lot of arguing to get that napkin admitted as a will, but I don't know.
mm,
That's an
wow.
extreme circumstance. Most of the time, there's going to be a lot of money and a lot of headache associated with trying to prove the validity of something you just wrote down on a piece of paper that didn't have a notary or some other witness who wasn't involved in the process. So
Mm.
it's better to get all the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
Yes. So for the procrastinators out there, let's say they did get it notarized, they do have the witnesses, but they didn't finish the circle and they didn't send it in to the law firm. What happens in that scenario?
They should make sure they keep that original. So the law firm doesn't have to have it. And it doesn't, in most states you file it with the probate court so that they have it on record just in case you lose the original. But if someone has the original and something happens to you, then they'll take that original to the court and file it when you pass away along with your death certificate to open up the estate. So if you have the original but you didn't give it back to the law firm, all is not lost.
Hmm. Okay. So for people who didn't get it notarized and still they have maybe they wrote their things down, their wishes and itemized their assets, but they didn't get it notarized yet. They don't have the witness signatures. So what happens if they pass away before they finished that process?
So each state has an intestacy statute, meaning someone died intestate without having written out a will. And so it'll tell you how the assets will be distributed. So normally the question is the person married? Do they have children? If they are married and they have children, then the state will say, most of the time, part of it will go to the spouse, part of it will go to the children. If there are no children, then 100% would go to the spouse. If there's no spouse, 100% would go to the children, and then it would go down from there. If they don't have any spouse or any children, it's probably to parents, then siblings, then so they'll have a little hierarchy of how the assets would be distributed,
Gotcha.
and then yeah, so then it would just follow the statute for that particular state.
Gotcha. So then, what's your advice for people who are shopping and they need to get this done? You know, what should they look for in an estate planning attorney?
I think that they should look for, I think they should like their lawyer. So the first thing I tell people is that it shouldn't be a transactional thing. You're talking about passing away or assets and family and things like that. So you should be comfortable talking about various dynamics. one child might be really good at finances while the other one, you're like, I don't want them to be in charge of their money. You should be able to tell your lawyer that so that they can help you come up with a solution. I think at the very least, they need to go to the bank for personal bank accounts and make sure they have things like a payable on death that says if something happens to them, this is who I want my money in my bank account to go to, because there
Mhm.
are fees, or you have to pay for a funeral, or who knows how long it's going to take for money and process. So at least someone can get access to money if you do something like that. But during your life, that person doesn't have access to your bank account. Um, Make sure that on whatever they have that they can list a beneficiary, that they go do that, because anything that has a beneficiary won't go through probate court. So then that will also expedite the process for those loved ones to be able to get access to what they need. So just, I'd say they need to, over the holidays, just do an inventory of what they have and see who they can list on there
Mhm.
as beneficiaries to kind of skip it. And then after that, if they have time, just try and get a will so that at least everyone knows exactly where things should go.
Yeah. Gotcha. Great. What about any other mistakes you might see people making when it comes to their estate planning?
I'd say the biggest mistake is not doing it. And the other is not getting a healthcare directive and a power of attorney. So people often will just focus on the will, but something could happen to us and we're still alive, but we can't advocate for ourselves.
Yeah.
So if you get in a car accident, I'm in Atlanta, people get in car accidents every day. We have horrible traffic and drivers. So you
Philly
could
to
be
the
in the car. Yeah, like you could be in the car and something happened.
yeah.
Then you're in the hospital and no one knows if you want to be resuscitated or if you want to be on a machine, or who you want to be in charge of your body if you can't speak for yourself. And so those things are a part of estate planning too. I know that a friend of mine has a daughter who is in her first year of college, and she can't make any doctor's appointments for her daughter anymore. And so she needs a healthcare directive so that her 18-year-old, she can still manage things for her child. And so those things are a part of estate planning that we don't necessarily think about, but often are just as important.
Right. Right. And good information. So then you also do the business law side. What are some of the, most popular um, transactions? Are you more into copyright, trademark,
Love
contracts?
trademark
Hmm.
and contracts.
Hmm.
Copyright's pretty easy. People should do that for everything for themselves. I think it might be $30 application fee. Like they just need to send it in.
Hmm.
Um, and so most of the time I'll show people how to do that themselves because they can
Okay.
just do it. Trademark can get a little more complicated for the business side. I often find that people, while they like their business partners, they don't think about getting operating agreements and things like that together. And then later on down the line, something happens and they're not getting along, and now they have to figure out what to do. And then they're getting a business divorce,
Hmm.
or one of their business partners dies, and then they're all of a sudden in business with their spouse of the business partner who knows nothing about the business, didn't build it up, all of these things. And they're like, what do we do? So, people plan their business and how to make all this money, but they don't necessarily plan for when things might not go the way they are planned.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
while everyone's getting along, is the best time to make those provisions, or write things down. Okay, what do we do if we need a tiebreaker, if we don't
Mhm.
agree on the direction the business is supposed to go? Right now, while you're all lovey-dovey, is when we need to figure out how to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think people can kind of get so, pulled into the vision, the excitement, the adventure, and, they don't think that it's a possibility that the partners could break up
Yeah.
in the business. Sure. I could totally see that. So what about just getting to know you as a person? What are some fun facts that our audience
I would
can know about you?
I'd say it's funny. I am almost 5'9". So generally I'd say I'm tall,
Yeah.
but I'm the shortest one in my family. My mother's 6'1" and my dad's 6'8".
6'8". No kidding. Did he play basketball? I hope.
He did. And I was like this tall, I feel like in the seventh or eighth grade. And I
Uh-huh.
prayed a lot that I would stop growing. And so I
Oh,
think it
really?
just worked. It worked out. I didn't want to be as tall as my mom.
Oh, boy. And here I was all through high school wishing I was taller. I'm 5'4 3/4." And I
Uh-huh.
always thought I would love to be 5'10" and, model height or
Yeah.
something, so oh, well, I guess God answered your prayers, huh?
It did. It
Yes,
worked out. Or I drank
yes,
coffee or something and stunted my growth, one or the other.
yeah, that's
But it
too
worked
funny.
out.
Tall family, tall family.
Really
Now, how
tall
can people
family.
get in touch with you?
So our website is thesaundersfirm.com. And
Mhm.
then I am on Instagram, Ask Amber Saunders.
Oh,
Everything
nice.
else, I'm trying to get better on social and all those things. We have them, but on
Mhm.
Instagram, I'm always on there. But
Yeah.
the other ones, it might take for a little time for me to respond. But those are the main ones. You can get us really quick.
Hey, you're very modern because I don't meet that many other law firms who are on Instagram.
Really? Oh, I'm doing good
Yes,
then. Okay,
yes,
great.
yes. So I can just see especially the younger crowd, well, younger than me. Um, I could see that being such a value add because you're not competing with too many other firms on there.
No.
So,
Good.
go Amber,
I'll
go
take it.
Amber. Well, this has been delightful just to be able to get to know you and introduce you to our audience and your practice areas. So you're in Atlanta, and I know a lot of our audience also is from Atlanta. So yes, go check out Amber Saunters at the Saunders Firm,
Hmm.
Saunders, the Saunders Firm.com. So thank you so much.